Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the One Pot Wonder. Today is our last class for this group. It's session 7 of class 6. So as of today, we've done 42 classes. So hats off to everybody who's participated. And a great big thank you to all of the people that have helped volunteer and support and donate. We've had a pretty good run with being able to provide some new recipes for you. So I really hope you're enjoying the class. And today's class, we are making Lazy Man cabbage rolls, which really isn't rolls, it's a casserole. So we're gonna get started, and in your bags you should have some hamburger, cabbage, some beef broth, some onions, and some rice. And then in addition to that, you'll have some milk and eggs as well in your bag. And for your spices today, you can pretty much add your own spices to what you'd like. You should have some Italian seasoning and some garlic from your previous class. And keep in mind that your tomato sauce has an Italian flavor in it as well. So we didn't put any spices in your bag today, but everything else is there. And so for making this casserole, this is a very large pan, but if you have any kind of a flat kind of pan with a bit of a lip in it to use for your baking today, because everything is going to be put together and then it's made into a casserole, and you throw it in the oven for about an hour, and then you check on it in another half hour just to kind of top it up. So it does take some preparation because you've got to let your cabbage cook and kind of all the flavors, and you need to get your rice to cook as well. Some people cheat and they'll actually do their rice ahead of time. I don't recommend that with this recipe because you have a lot of liquid that you're going to add to your casserole. So that liquid will be absorbed through your rice and also through your cabbage and your meat as well. So we're going to get started. We're going to go over to the stove and we're going to pre-cook our meat, and then we're going to compile everything together. So we'll see you at the stove. So our meat, we've kind of gone through a little bit faster of a process here. So our meat, we put on the stove, and I put it between medium and high for temperature. I added my onions and Italian seasoning and some garlic, and it's just flavor to taste. And so I've cooked this meat and just kind of chopped it up into small pieces. You don't want your pieces to be too big. And so now the next step will be to add your cabbage and your rice and then your liquids. So we're going to start that process and we'll be right back. Okay, so while we were on behind the camera there for a little bit, Kim and I were talking about some ideas, different ways that you could put together your cabbage rolls, and she had some really good ideas. So it is a variation of a lot of things. You could do pork and beef together, the ground beef, and mixture instead of the same process that we were talking about at the stove with cooking. You can add tomato soup in rather than just having your tomato sauce for your spaghetti that you would normally use for spaghetti. What was the other thing, Kim? Oh, the coconut milk you could use just to add an extra.
Coconut milk, cream, or milk.
Yeah, and it's the same concept for the liquid. You want to try to have your, I guess you don't have to have tomato flavor, but the whole idea is to just kind of give your palate a nice treat. So, but for today, we're just using the broth, and we're going to use the tomato sauce.
And sauteing onions and bacon as well.
Oh yeah, and cheese. We were talking about cheese. You know,
Baking
you
it.
to be able to bake it, you could put it on top of your casserole and bake it, which would add a real new texture to it and a flavor for sure. And then we also have, you could even use a little Parmesan too. So I'm gonna add just a little more of the cabbage, and we're going to add our rice. So the recipe, the large recipe that you have, it's potentially it's for 12 servings, but you can break that serving size down.
Monday part 2.
Yep, for sure. So you can break that recipe down, and keeping in mind that your rice is actually a filler for when you're doing your cabbage rolls. So this being in a flat pan, you could add a whole variation of different things if you wanted. You could add your green peppers, you could add mushrooms, you could add whatever you like. So because it is a cabbage roll base, but it's kind of just whatever you have in the fridge you could add in. It changes the concept, but it certainly would taste just as yummy.
Beans and corn and taco seasoning.
Yeah, yeah. So these cans in your recipe that you have, it calls for 14 ounces of your beef broth, which is equivalent to just under about 400 grams.
Yeah.
Or 400 mils, sorry. So you would need about half of your container to start with. And so, but depending on how many people you're feeding, and so it's just stirring this completely to make sure that you need just a bit more in here of this. And this should, and you'll want to check it as you're baking it. You can preheat your oven to 350, and then keep in mind this is about an hour process, a little more than an hour. And I would pull it out to check it and give it a stir actually, to make sure you have enough liquid. That's why I haven't used the whole can of tomato sauce, because we'll adjust it accordingly. And you will have some extra in your bag. And I'm gonna add just a touch more. And keep in mind that your rice, as we had said earlier, your rice and your ingredients are gonna really take a lot of that juice out because you are not pre-cooking your rice. So, all right, I think that is going to be lovely. So we're going to put, I'm gonna just move this over here. And being the one-armed bandit I am,
Do you want me to help?
I'm not sure I'm gonna be able to do this. I got it. We're good. So we're gonna put all of this into this big pan. And if you do have a big pan, that's perfect. If you don't, you could put it in a couple pans, whatever works for you. And if you don't have access to an oven, you actually could cook this on the stove.
Slow cooker.
On a slow cooker for sure.
I've done it in the slow cooker, but increase your broth.
Yes. Yes. And I think we're definitely going to have to put some extra sauce in this as we progress. So we're going to pop this into the oven and we'll be back shortly.